She thought the moment he saw her daughter asleep in her arms, he would stand up, mutter an excuse, and walk out the door forever. But what he did instead would leave the entire restaurant speechless, and it would change both of their lives in ways neither of them ever saw coming. Mara Whitlock had exactly $14 in her checking account and a 3-year-old daughter who refused to nap unless she was being carried. It was a Friday evening in October, the kind where the sky over the small town of Hollow Creek turned a bruised orange before slipping into darkness, and Mara was already 40 minutes late for the first date she had agreed to in over 2 years. Her babysitter, a neighbor's teenage daughter, had called an hour earlier with a voice thick with apology, explaining that she had come down with a fever and simply could not watch little Elsie tonight. Mara had stood in her kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, staring at the dress she had laid out on her bed that morning, the only nice dress she owned, and felt the familiar tightening in her chest that came whenever life reminded her that she was doing this alone. She almost canceled. Her thumb hovered over the message she had already typed to Nathan Cole, the man she had been messaging for 3 weeks after a mutual friend insisted they would get along. "I'm so sorry, something came up, we should reschedule." It would have been so easy to send it. Easier certainly than what she actually did, which was to scoop up her sleeping daughter, wrap her in the soft yellow blanket she never went anywhere without, and drive 25 minutes to Rosemont, the nicest restaurant in 3 counties, arriving breathless and disheveled with a toddler snoring softly against her shoulder. She told herself she would explain the situation to him the moment she saw him. She would apologize, offer to reschedule, maybe even suggest they just get coffee another day when she wasn't also functioning as a human pillow. She had already rehearsed the words in the car over and over, trying to make them sound casual instead of desperate. But rehearsing words and saying them are 2 very different things. And when the hostess led her toward the corner table where a man in a charcoal gray suit sat waiting, Mara felt every one of those rehearsed sentences evaporate from her mind. Nathan Cole stood up as she approached. He was taller than his photos suggested, broad-shouldered with the kind of quiet composure that made people in expensive restaurants look twice without meaning to. Mara braced herself. She had seen this reaction before. On the rare occasions she had tried dating since her husband's accident 3 years ago, the polite smile that didn't reach the eyes, the sudden remembered appointment, the awkward retreat, she was ready for it. She had built calluses around the disappointment a long time ago. But Nathan didn't do any of that. He looked at Elsie's small face pressed against her mother's shoulder, at the yellow blanket, at Mara's exhausted, apologetic expression, and something in his own face softened in a way that caught her completely off guard. Without a word, he pulled out the chair across from him, then quietly asked the hostess for a second chair to be brought beside it, low enough that a sleeping child could be laid down without waking her. He didn't ask why she had brought her daughter. He didn't make her explain herself. He simply made room. "I didn't know what else to do," Mara finally whispered. Once Elsie was settled and she had lowered herself into the chair across from him, her hands trembling slightly as she smoothed her daughter's hair. "My sitter got sick an hour ago. I almost didn't come." "I'm glad you did," Nathan said simply, and there was nothing performative in the way he said it. He wasn't trying to impress her. He genuinely meant it. What followed was unlike any first date Mara had ever experienced. They spoke in low voices so as not to wake Elsie, and somewhere between the appetizers and the entrees, the conversation shifted from careful small talk into something realer. Nathan told her about his father, a mechanic who had raised him and his 2 brothers alone after their mother left, about learning early what it meant to watch a parent carry weight that should have been shared by 2. He told her quietly that he recognized something in the tired set of her shoulders, something he had seen in his own father for years, and that it didn't scare him away. If anything, it made him want to stay. Mara found herself telling him things she hadn't said out loud in a long time. About Daniel, her husband, and the crash that took him 18 months after Elsie was born. About the nights she sat on the bathroom floor doing math in her head, trying to make daycare costs and grocery bills fit into a paycheck that never stretched quite far enough. About the guilt she carried for even being at this dinner, as though wanting something for herself was somehow a betrayal of the promises she had made to raise her daughter well. Nathan listened without interrupting, without offering hollow comfort. without once looking at his watch or glancing toward the door the way she had feared he might. Halfway through dinner, Elsie stirred. Her small eyes blinked open, confused by the unfamiliar restaurant, the candlelight, the stranger sitting across from her mother. She looked up at Nathan with the frank, unguarded suspicion only a 3-year-old can manage, and Mara felt her stomach drop, certain this was the moment the evening would sour. Instead, Nathan crouched slightly so he was closer to her eye level and asked, in the gentlest voice Mara had heard from him all night, whether she liked dinosaurs. Elsie, still half asleep and cautious, nodded once. For the next 10 minutes, while Mara sat frozen with something she hadn't let herself feel in years, Nathan Cole talked to her daughter about triceratops and pterodactyls, drawing little sketches on his napkin with the pen from his jacket pocket, making her laugh in that hiccuping, sleepy way toddlers laugh when they're fighting exhaustion. He didn't perform for Mara's benefit. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He was simply kind, in a way that asked for nothing in return. It was in that small, unremarkable moment, a grown man, drawing a lopsided dinosaur on a cloth napkin for a little girl who wasn't his mother. Mara realized she was in serious trouble. Not the trouble of a bad decision, but the trouble of allowing herself to hope again, which was, in its own way, far more terrifying. The evening ended later than either of them expected. Nathan walked them to Mara's car, carrying the diaper bag she'd forgotten was slung over her own shoulder, and when Elsie reached her small arms toward him for an unprompted hug goodnight, Mara watched something shift visibly in his expression. Some wall she hadn't even noticed until it began to come down. I know tonight wasn't what either of us planned, Mara said. Once Elsie was buckled into her car seat and dozing again. I would understand if this was enough for you. If it's too much. Nathan was quiet for a moment, looking not at her but at the fogged-up back window where Elsie's small shape was visible in the streetlight. My father used to say that the people worth keeping in your life are the ones who show up, even when it's complicated, especially then. He met Mara's eyes. You didn't cancel. You showed up exhausted and terrified and carrying your whole world in your arms, and you still came. That's not too much. Mara, that's exactly the kind of person I've been hoping to find. 6 months later, on a warm April afternoon, Nathan proposed to Mara in the very same corner booth at Rosemont. The low second chair once again pulled up beside the table, except this time, 3-year-old, now 4-year-old Elsie sat in it wide awake, clutching a small stuffed triceratops Nathan had given her the week they met, one that had barely left her side since. When he asked Mara to marry him, he asked Elsie too, kneeling down to her height and solemnly requesting her permission to be her second dad, a question that made the little girl shriek with delighted laughter, loud enough to draw applause from the surrounding tables. Mara said yes through tears she didn't bother hiding. She thought, as she had so many times since that first uncertain night, of how close she had come to sending that cancellation text, of how one small act of showing up, and messy, sleep-deprived and unglamorous as it was, had opened a door she thought had closed forever when she lost Daniel. She thought about how love rarely arrives the way people expect it to, wrapped in convenience and perfect timing. Sometimes it arrives breathless and 40 minutes late, carrying a sleeping toddler and a yellow blanket, terrified of being turned away. And sometimes, if you're lucky, the person sitting across the table doesn't walk away. Sometimes they simply pull out a chair,